But today we're doing something a little different. We're looking at how experts talk.
That's right. This is less about learning new facts and much more about building the linguistic framework you need to discuss complex subjects, specifically with scientific rigor.
And the sources we're working with are really interesting. It's essentially a lesson plan, a very high-level one, designed to show you the most effective way to really increase your accuracy in these kinds of discussions.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to unpack the relationship between that specialized vocabulary, in this case biology terms, and a small but really powerful set of grammar tools. We call them modals.
Things like will, may, might, must.
Hmm.
And in science, the language has to be precise. It just has to be.
Right.
If you mix these up, say you use will when you really mean might, you fundamentally change the meaning of your claim. You've gone from suggesting a possibility to stating a fact.
An unproven fact. That.
Exactly. And our goal
Wow.
is to give you the tools, both the words and the grammar,
Yeah.
to signal your exact level of confidence every single time.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So let's start with those building blocks, the vocabulary. I mean, before we can even debate certainty, we need the words to frame the idea itself.
Precisely. And for you listening, we'll assume you have a basic grasp. So we're focusing on the utility of these terms in, let's say, a formal discussion.
Right.
So we start with cell. We define it as the smallest part of an organism that can function independently. And when cells work together, they form an organism, any living creature. Those are our units of study.
Okay, but then things get more complex pretty fast when we talk about heredity. We have genetic and DNA. We use the word genetic when we're talking broadly, right? About the inheritable chemical pattern.
Yeah, the general traits. But we use DNA when we need to be incredibly specific. It's the actual chain of genes, the blueprint itself.
And why is that separation so important for a professional discussion?
Well, think about research. You might isolate a single genetic factor to see how it influences a biological process. So you need the generic term, factor, but also the specific term for the material carrying the instruction, which is DNA.
Got it. Okay, moving on from structure to change. This is fundamental to biology. We have to be able to distinguish between evolve and adapt.
Yes. To evolve means something develops over a very long time, across generations.
Driven by natural selection.
Exactly. But to adapt, that's about changing to suit new conditions now. It can happen within a single lifespan.
And confusing those two must be a huge red flag in a scientific conversation.
Oh, it's dangerous. Linguistically, I mean. If a scientist says something evolved, that's a massive claim about genetics and history. If they say it can adapt, they're just talking about its immediate capability.
So using the wrong word completely misrepresents the timescale.
Completely. And that's critical when you're talking about things like climate change or species survival.
Perfect example. Okay, so beyond the subjects and actions, we need the inputs, the mechanisms. Every organism needs nutrients.
Right. The substances for growth and health.
Yeah.
And to explain how life varies, we use the word factor. A factor is just anything that contributes to a result.
And these will happen within a process, right? Like
Yeah.
photosynthesis.
And a scientist's job is to distinguish between all the different factors to classify them correctly. Is it genetic, environmental, and then to link specific factors to the results they see. This vocabulary is really the common ground everyone has to stand on.
Okay, so the foundation is set. We have the language of life locked down. Now for the really interesting part, the grammatical architecture, how experts show their level of confidence.
This is the key.
This is where we bring in the modals.
Right. And we can really break their usage down into three main functions when we're talking about scientific claims.
Before we jump into those, can I just ask, science is supposed to be objective, right? Observational. So why would we ever use strong predictive language like will? Doesn't that sort of make it sound less objective?
That's a great question. And you're right, science does prefer objectivity. But we only use that strong language when the underlying laws, physical or biological, make an outcome extremely certain.
So it's not about ego.
Not at all. It's about established evidence. We're talking about things like gravity or, in this case, the fact that photosynthesis requires carbon. We say it will happen because it saves time and it affirms a well-tested theory.
I see. It's like a shortcut for the evidence for this is overwhelming.
Exactly.
Okay, let's start with that strongest marker then, certainty.
Right. The first function is certainty, strong predictions. And for that, we use the modal will, or its negative won't. It signals the data is solid.
An example.
A rise in the Earth's temperature will affect marine life. It's presented as a confident forecast because the links between heat, chemistry, and biology are very well established.
Okay, makes sense. Now, what about the much more common ground for research, the tentative hypothesis?
That brings us to function 2, possibility or uncertainty. This is the language of cautious estimation. Here we use the softer modals, may, might, or could.
So this is for things that haven't been confirmed yet.
Precisely. It's for a hypothesis or a guess. For example, talking about policy, we'd say governments may introduce stricter laws. We use may because human behavior is unpredictable. It's not a guarantee.
And then the final one, this is the shift from just observing to stating what needs to be done.
Yes, the third function is obligation or necessity. This is where we see have to, need to, or the more authoritative must. This isn't a prediction anymore.
It's a conclusion.
It's a logical deduction based on the facts you just presented. If the science shows a threat, you state the necessity. Everyone needs to reduce their energy consumption.
Or the data points to drought, therefore we must conserve water.
Perfect. You're making a strong deduction based on evidence.
So if you want to sound like you know what you're talking about, you have to choose the right modal. It has to reflect your evidence. The wrong choice just undermines everything.
Absolutely. The line between a theory and a guess is often just that single word.
Okay, to really see this in action, let's look at the sample conversation from the source material. It's two students, Ben and Chloe, and they're talking about evolution.
And they integrate these two elements, the vocab and the modals, just flawlessly. Let's break down their choices.
Okay, so Chloe starts off, she's talking about adaptation and says that desert plants can adapt by growing long root systems.
Right, so she's using the vocabulary term systems and pairing it with the modal can, why can. Because she's expressing capability. She's not guaranteeing they will succeed. She's just saying they have the biological ability to start the process. If she had said they will adapt, she'd be ignoring all the other factors that could cause them to fail.
Like a sudden drought or human activity.
Uh,
Then Ben jumps in with the genetic side of things. He says, genetic factors must play a fundamental role in the process. If an organism doesn't have the right DNA, it simply won't survive.
Look at how confident that language is. The word must shows a strong logical necessity. We know from biology that the right instructions, the DNA, are required.
It's a given.
It's a given. So if they're wrong or missing, the result is stated with absolute certainty. It won't survive. Stacking modals like that, it just shows a high confidence in the basic laws of genetics.
Okay, and then Chloe comes back in and adds a layer of caution, which I think shows real skill.
Yeah.
She says they must be careful not to estimate the rate of change.
Mm-hmm.
And then she says this great line. The number of species that may become extinct will vary widely depending on the climate.
That sentence is just a masterclass. First, the must establishes a procedural rule. Don't overestimate. Then you get that powerful dual modal. She uses may for the extinctions because the outcome for any one species is still uncertain.
Right, too many factors.
But then she immediately switches to will vary because the principle that different regions will react differently. That itself is a scientific certainty. So she's certain about the variability, even if she's uncertain about the specific outcome.
Wow. Okay, so they're being incredibly precise about what they know versus what they're speculating on.
That's it.
Then finally, Ben applies this to a global challenge. He talks about providing nutrients, saying they must identify ways to solve it, and that this must be the biggest challenge they will face this century.
And here the modals stack up to create this feeling of urgency and inevitability. The two uses of the R-letter aspirations must signal both a necessity for action, we must identify solutions, and a strong logical deduction. This must be the biggest challenge.
And the final will just anchors it.
It anchors it as a confident prediction. They're not just listing facts. They're using language to frame the critical implications of those facts.
So what does this all mean for you listening? I mean, scientific accuracy is so much more than just knowing the vocabulary. It requires having these precise linguistic tools, the modals, to frame your facts correctly as either possibilities, necessities, or certainties.
And by integrating that core vocabulary, words like organism, adapt, DNA with the right modals, will, may, must, you gain the clarity you need. You start to sound less like you're reciting from a textbook and more like an expert who truly understands the evidence behind their claim.
And that understanding is really the key to being genuinely well-informed.
Definitely. So as you go forward, think about this connection, the link between a genetic factor and survival. If you were a researcher, what is one specific thing that might happen if you changed a single genetic factor in a simple organism? Think of all the possibilities. Now, on the other hand, based on everything we know about climate and resources, what is one thing you are absolutely certain, one thing that will happen, regarding that organism's survival in our changing world. That gap right there between the tentative might and the predictive will, that's the precision you need to master.